Chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. If he stays onside, Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sills.
Hello, welcome to this latest episode of the Gull'S Eye View. It's a very special one because we've got a very special guest, Alex Rowe. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, and of course we're joined by Clive. It's his debut on Gull'S Eye View too.
Hi, chaps.
And then Tom.
Hi, guys.
So, Alex Rowe, right, obviously to all of us, we know exactly who you are. We know exactly what you did, but to the very young generation that watch this, explain about yourself and sort of what you did before Torquay and then now and what your role in Success was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me.
No worries.
It's a privilege to be on your on your podcast, and actually to kind of recognize that some people at least remember me, because it was a long time ago. But yes, let me tell you kind of my history. We're in A, Torquay, and B, Torquay United. So I actually came to the Bay I'm a Cornishman. I was born in Cornwall. Came to the Bay in the mid 1980s when my family business was a laundry business, then in rental dry cleaning called CLS, which is on the Newton Road, and actually it was a very successful business. And during that time, I've always been a football fan. Being a Cornishman, you're in a little bit of a backwater with the greatest respect to Cornish teams, many of which we have the greatest time and love and respect for. But nonetheless, they hadn't really made a breakthrough. So I went to university in Scotland, followed Rangers because my best mate was in university, was a Rangers fan. I got absolutely hooked on live football.
Yeah.
So when I came to Torquay, came to live here, I found some friends, and we absolutely trooped over to the pop side. And my first game, actually, I remember really well, was the West Ham United FA Cup tie, with Paul Hirons' goal. And I was a regular from then on. I had the privilege of sponsoring the late great Paul Holmes. He was the first player I sponsored. Mm-hmm. My word, what a guy! I mean, I could not have wished to sponsor someone better from my opening interaction with players at Torquay United. Mm-hmm. And I guess the business itself, we relocated from Torquay to just outside Newton Abbot, somewhat controversially, but actually we'd been a family business for nearly 100 years. Mm-hmm. And we recognized the time had come to probably move on. It's time for another generation to take over, or indeed another company to take over. Yeah. So we received a good offer, so we sold the business, and actually that gave me a bit of the wherewithal to be able to do other things. Yeah. I continued in business with non-executive roles, and of course the opportunity to take over Torquay United, and indeed to be able to make an investment happened. Well, we all know around the Roberts era, the somewhat calamitous regime that we followed. Yeah, and it was So that's kind of how I got seriously involved in. I like that.
That's a great story. That I love that.
It is a good story, and also I think it's important to remember that the sort of my friends from that time, who are still my friends, and two of those guys were consortium members with me, the Boyce brothers. Their father was a legendary chair of well, I mean, all PC here, legendary chairman of Torquay United, and it was actually him who got me involved.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's really important because they gave us he gave me two or at least one very, very good word of advice. He said, whatever it is you invest, the chances are you'll never see it again.
Yeah, no, that's what everyone says about a football club, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll come on to that in a minute, but so, and sorry, I'll stop in a minute and let you guys have a chat.
No, it's great. It's your interview. It's brilliant. We'd have to go talking for
So I pass that message on to the members of I'll call it my consortium, but I think more appropriately the Boyce consortium than maybe the Bristow consortium, but the one which I was very proud to have headed up in those days. Yeah. So I was pretty, we all knew what lower league and non-league football was like in those days, and so I went into this with my eyes open, and I guess the challenge then, alongside the Boyce brothers, was to create a consortium, recruit people into that consortium, and see what we could do in purchasing the club from, indeed, Mike Bateson, because after the Roberts debacle, the shares had reverted to him. So actually, it was with Mike where we had our interaction.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, I'll let you have a
no, go on, Tom. You got questions too. We've even organised the questions out this week.
Well, we've already brought him up, but discussing about Chris Roberts at the end of that era. So, with the initial takeover plans, how did that sort of transpire from the end of the Roberts era back to Bateson, and then obviously back to
it's actually Tom. It's a really it's a good question, that, because for what we did well was, we, in terms of the recruitment into the consortium, they were all local, which is obviously, and there's some similarities here with the Brink consortium, but they were local people. They were successful people, really important, ambitious people. And obviously, when you're putting together a group like this, a board like this, you're kind of looking for complementary skills. But actually, and this is going to sound a bit mercenary, but more important, we needed the money, because we're making a fresh start. We needed to make sure we were well funded. And I remember my initial thoughts on this were that we had collected a decent war chest, so we had some ammunition to actually make an impact in that first season. And then, of course, we had to do a deal with Mike that he would find acceptable. And you can imagine, as fans, I mean, just fans as well, how excited we are.
I imagine.
Close to buying a football club, and my football club. And I remember walking around and going into the bowling alley and around the pop side and all that, and thinking, my God, we're this close to having this. And as happens in any kind of negotiation, Mike turned us down. And he said, that's just not enough, which is entirely his prerogative. And it was a very bittersweet moment, because on the one hand, that feeling of deflation, that because you're kind of rehearsing the moment, your first press conference, all of that, I'm thinking, here we go, we're on here. And then the other side of that coin was, I did feel a huge sense of responsibility, which actually was lifted from me, because as you know, this club means so much to so many people.
That's really interesting, because it's similar to what happened with this takeover bid. They had their first one rejected, and it almost came back to them, didn't it? So I imagine at the time, I agree with what you're saying. I imagine at the time that it's kind of that really gutted, but also a bit, well, it was actually going to be a lot of responsibility. So
because I wasn't short of things to do in my life, so and I can honestly remember thinking, it's just not meant to be. And that's the way it is. But I could look in the mirror and say, we've done all we can. We offered a fair price. Mike turned that down. I understand that, completely his prerogative. So I just got over the disappointment and gone back to the kind of the real world, when Chris Boyce rings me, who, apart from being my friend, my consortium member, but also our corporate lawyer, rings me and says, we're back on. So, and this is a germane story to how our opening days unfolded, because we went out to see Mike at his farm. We negotiated a bit. There's a bit of theatre with Mike, which is great. It was all good. As those of you that remember his era, it was he did him and his family did a great job for Torquay United, by the way. 100%. And I know he's a character which can divide opinion. Actually, fabulous job. And we did that deal, but of course, famously, the time we spent there the clock had ticked past 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, there was a press conference where Mike's ownership announced, under Mervyn Benny's chairmanship, had announced Leroy Rossignol as the new manager. So the one thing I will be famous for with my colleagues is for employing a manager for the shortest time in sort of
senior. It's an incredible story.
Those 13 minutes. And it was.
You're a trailblazer. Chelsea do that all the time now.
Absolutely. I think 13 minutes is a bit steep. Although, in fairness to, as Leroy will, he may not tell you the quantum, but he'll certainly admit he was well paid for the 13 minutes. And he deserved to be compensated, clearly, because he was, given this job opportunity. and actually we wanted a fresh start. We had no issue with Leroy particularly, but we felt that the time was appropriate for us to move as far away from the past as we could.
Again, what they've done now as well. What they've done now as well. You have to do that when you have to do any business or anything like that. You have to have a complete rebuild. You have to just chop away from that kind of thing. It might have worked did work in the past. In our case, with Leroy, an incredible manager. But yeah, no, it's really interesting and very bold move. Imagine like now as well in these day and age of like social media and that sort of thing, how that would have transpired. It would have been ridiculous. You know, it's incredible.
It would. Thank God we didn't have to worry about that particular aspect of what is now a part of daily routine in terms of communication. And I think, by the way, the Brink Consortium have handled that side of things brilliantly.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. To your point about clean sweep, actually, I listened into your podcast on when you did the red, amber, green assessment of last year's squad.
That was our one. That we had our hearts on our sleeves too much.
And so you should, because that's what makes this game so exciting. Everyone has opinions. It's emotional stuff. But my kind of thought on that, going back to 2007 in particular, where we were similarly left with bereft of a squad in truth, is that where you are thinking amber, I would always go red.
Yeah.
And that's no reflection actually on the ability necessarily of the players involved. But what you need to do is to bring in people
who are definitely
of a certain, I mean, ability is important, but it's not the only thing. You need character, you need culture,
totally
you need people you can trust.
And you need that on the whole club. You need that on the whole club, from the little jobs, I don't want to call them little jobs, but you know what I mean? The jobs from anywhere within the football club, right up to the playing staff. You need that, not just like winners mentality, just that kind of new attitude. If I'm honest with you, to everyone watching, most of the players we put in amber was red, but we were too attached to say green.
You're too nice.
To say, I want to get rid of Ace, but yeah, we're too nice to say that. You could never say that.
The first thing you learn when you work in the business of football, as we learned as a group who frankly had no exposure to it, the first thing we learn is it's a pretty brutal world.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
You know, and actually you have to harden yourself to that or be guided through that. So that's my lesson.
Alex, can I quickly just jump in before we move on? Sorry, Clive, just before we move on to the next one. Tom, we talk about, obviously, you know, we went into administration this season. Were we close to that?
What was the standard?
Would it have been administration had your second offer of the consortium not been accepted? Were there any other viable people that you knew about?
Was Bateson going to carry it on?
Or was Bateson going to take us forward?
Yes, that's a good question. My memory, and again, it is a personal memory, and it was a long time ago, but my sense was that we were not close to administration. And actually, I think the Brink Consortium, in that sense, has had a more challenging transition from the old regime to their regime than we did. That's not to say we weren't challenged, but I think dealing with administrators and all of the legal process they have to go through and their responsibilities. And actually, to your point you made earlier, I think Sam, you made the point about, in a sense, not only are you you're bidding for the club, so the DD is being done on you, let alone the fact you're doing DD on the target. And that is a challenge which we didn't have to do. To your point, my recollection was that Mike had reached the point, and his family, in fairness, Debbie was there working, had reached the point where they were not prepared to subsidize the club any further. And so therefore they'd gone into the part-time scenario and essentially cut in whatever costs they could. That was their way forward.
Okay.
I'm not sure there would have been much opportunity to get back into the Football League on that basis, if I'm honest. But having given 17 years or so of his life and their lives to our club, who can blame them?
I mean,
administration was an issue.
That is interesting. It's a very different time in those days as well. I feel like the fifth tier, the National League, the Blue Square Bet in those days, it was a lot. We would say weaker, but there was a lot more part-time than there is now. It's a lot stronger now.
Agreed.
So that is interesting. Yeah.
Also, I think the one thing that helped us transition, which Bryn don't have the advantage of. Obviously, we had a parachute payment, which added to our own firepower. and also Satanta, to your point, had just got interested in non-league
what a
football.
Coverage, amazing,
I mean,
wasn't it?
honestly, it was unbelievable how
they
much
cursed us, but it was amazing.
Yeah, it did curse us a bit, but actually we were out there. Our name, you know, we had a reputation for being entertaining, whether we got stuffed or whether we won.
Yeah, especially that first year. Yeah,
I remember watching a game at Oxford United, the Oxford United away,
amazing.
It's the weirdest game because we were 3-0 down at half time. And as you do when my wife was driving and we're in hospitality, I thought, you know, I might as well go down having a couple of glasses of red and just enjoying myself because this is going to be carnage. Oh my God. Second half, we were magnificent. And all of that was covered on Satanta.
Yeah.
And that's what I think brought Torquay to a much wider United and indeed a much wider audience. But it actually raises the level of responsibility for us because we almost became everybody's second favourite team.
Yeah.
Irrespective of where you were. I was in Scotland and somebody said to me, I saw you on Sky News. You think, oh my God, you forget how kind of all pervading the game of football can be.
Yes, Satanta was special. But I know TNT are doing BT into TNT, are doing quite a nice bit of coverage on a non-league, but it never beats Satanta. I mean, like, I just remember every weekend or week you'd have a Blue Square Bet game on, and it wasn't just that, it was the highlight shows especially for it that were really just like match of the day kind of sort of coverage on all the games, and it was it really made that era special.
Absolutely.
We're gonna Tom's gonna ask you in a minute about the first season, but and I'm sure Mr. Buckle's name is going to get a lot of coverage here. Could I quickly ask you how that came about? Because obviously you wanted a fresh start from Leroy. How did you get him?
That was entirely Colin Lee's doing. Colin knew Paul from a previous club where Paul had been a youth coach. I think I have to be careful which club. I'm not sure. It might have been Brentford or something like that.
That rings a bell.
And where he'd been a youth player. I think Colin may have worked with him. He then did some research into Paul when he was assistant manager over at Exeter City, which was the post he was in before we took him. And he came to us and said, this is the guy for us. And when I, obviously met him, he wasn't the only candidate, to be fair. There was one other that we met, which we felt we needed to out of a kind of respect for the previous regime, which was Keith Curl. We met with him, spoke to him, but in truth, although he's an impressive coach, impressive individual, actually the time had come for that fresh blood. And so when Paul was introduced to us by Colin, we met with Paul. We thought, he's the guy for us. And he has that. You know what Paul's like. He has that sort of confidence, that chirpiness.
So confident, isn't he?
He is at times irritatingly so, and he would admit that if he was listening now. He'll probably see this anyway. But he had that, which I like. He could back himself,
especially for a young manager. Such a young, former manager. It's very young at the time. It's incredible, really.
And it was interesting because the one thing, if going back to your point about what advice would you give to the Brink Consortium, and the truth is, I've seen those guys' CVs and their pen portraits up. I mean, they're impressive individuals. So any advice I give, I do so genuinely with utmost humility. They don't need advice from me. What I would say is, it's very tempting to get involved in the football. Really, our job is to run the club as best we can and let the football people get on with the football. But I couldn't resist saying to Paul right at the start of the whole recruitment process, there's only kind of two things I would expect from a Torquay United side. One is, I never want to see us bullied off the park. I want to make sure we will always stand up for ourselves. And the second thing is, I don't really want to have to be apologising for players causing mayhem in nightclubs in Torquay. I could do without that, really. I expect to have good ambassadors.
Professional.
And I just left it. He said, and he did say to me, "Don't worry, Chairman. I promise you, I will get you good players and good people." And if you reflect on them, I know some of our younger listeners and viewers won't be so familiar with that era of player. But for the most part, they are a top set of lads, and they still, and they've done incredibly well in the game now.
Yeah, just shows, doesn't it?
I still have, it takes me back. They're great fun.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah,
so they didn't let me down. I can just tell you that.
Well, yeah, as you say, look at how many of them are now successful coaches and managers.
Exactly.
So
exactly right.
It's very interesting.
I think that ties in nicely to the next question. I think about the your first season in charge and in the background. Just your overall thoughts really on how you felt the season went from your perspective. Obviously, we all know how it ended in such a disappointing manner. I don't know whether that was a good thing for us retrospectively or because it felt like that was our time.
It's the weirdest thing. Up until Christmas, it was, I thought, a fabulous season. We were set up to win 1-0, and somehow we managed to be the top scorers in England in the top 5 divisions. And I thought we were entertaining. We were full of momentum. Yeah, the Playmore was rocking at times. It was such a great feeling. I sometimes get my years mixed up. I can't. The Yeovil game in the FA Cup.
Yeah, that was first. That was first. Yeah, incredible.
Those sort of games, they just added to momentum. They obviously took some of the stuffing out of us when you need to.
With all the cup games,
it is hard work. Yeah. And Paul Bucks, we always said this. With the I have to say the exception of the Setanta Shield, which we thought was a waste of time.
Yeah.
FA Cup, FA Trophy, we want to win every game.
Yeah.
Because actually it's prize money. From my point of view, any income stream we need to tap into.
We had that this year. Honestly, this year the trophy was a nice distraction for us. One of my biggest disappointments was basically the team not turning up at Hereford, because that was a winnable game.
Get to Wembley.
Sorry, Alex, carry on.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying. So to get to Christmas was fine, and we have a sort of an in-family joke about this. But my wife's family's restaurant is, he said, plugging it, is the Sing Chinese restaurant in Torwood Street or Babcombe Road, and we had a Christmas party there, and it was one hell of a party. But we never sobered up until about March, and my recollection is we just about crawled over the sort of the playoff line, and we'd lost that impetus.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of goals conceded, wasn't it? It was a lot of sloppy goals. That Aldershot game,
we were about second for a while, weren't we, in that period? Then we knew we were going to make playoffs at a minimum, and then we kind of tailed off. But
we did, and that's not a good sign when you're in that kind of limp along mode. And it shows you how optimistic I am that in the lead up to the semi-final against Exeter at home, the home leg, when we'd won away. And we had the FA Trophy a week on against Ebbsfleet. I'd almost in my head written a speech. First year as chairman, a trophy, promotion.
Looked like it, didn't it?
All of that. And then I can remember after the FA Trophy, Chris Hargreaves and I were looking at our kids swimming in a pool, and he said to me, "Sorry." I said, "Mate, you have nothing to apologise for. You and you guys have worked your butt off here." But I said I'd written my speech, and he said, "So would I." So we had this expectation, but we learned a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to in a minute, but you can tell in 08-09, I know the start of the season was so slow, but you can tell we learnt so much of the mentality. We're going back to 07-08, obviously, had the FA Cup run, which was good, beating Yeovil on BBC. I remember watching that. I know we lost 4-3 at Exeter, but then beating them 1-0 at New Year's Day. It's just that Aldershot game, wasn't it, where I think we had an unknown keeper and he had a couple of dodgy moments, shall we say, to be kind.
He did. Mikel Anderson.
Yeah, Anderson. Like he had a great career afterwards, as they always do. But I know Chris Hargreaves wasn't too complimentary about him in his autobiography. That's why. But it's. I feel like that season it was about excitement. We were so good with set pieces. Obviously, it was a lot of goals conceded. I feel like that was our undoing. Well, obviously, when we went into season 2, the sort of goalkeeper and defence changed quite a bit. I know we had Poke for a month in like January, I think, on 07-08, and he didn't even concede a goal like in the league. So
was that 5-4 at Histon? Was that the first year or the second? I can't remember.
Mental.
Was that the first year?
Mental.
Yeah, I think Darren Mullins scored. A squad player, I think, in that particular game. scored. Yeah, that's a mental game.
And we had Tim Sills in goal for Forest Green, didn't we?
Oh,
that's
one of my
favourite.
Was that the next one?
That was 08-09. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
We'll go into that in a minute.
Fabulous. Then. And they missed a penalty.
Yeah.
Didn't he put it at the keeper? What were they thinking?
I know,
10 men, centre forward in goal. And it was that sort of team, though, wasn't it? It was going to go and win anywhere that season.
Yeah. That's the nearest I ever got to sacking Buckle.
Yeah.
He knows this.
I was going to say... Well, I was going to say...
I wanted to ask, yeah.
Yeah, 08-09. I forgot who that was. I think that was Clydesville. 08-09. We all want to know.
You have literally answered the question I was going to ask you. Start of that season, according to my notes, we won 1 in 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 points in the first 8, was it? Or something like that?
Something like that,
wasn't it? And I remember...
lots of Salisbury, didn't we?
I was on the pop side the night we would... So after that run, during that run, really... Yeah. We were losing at home to Northwich Victoria.
Yeah.
And I think we scored 2 in the last,
awful.
I think we scored 2 in the last 10 minutes.
Tim Still's got a last minute penalty.
Last minute penalty that he...
So I guess it would have been the worst decision ever to get rid of Paul Buckle, but was that an option at the time?
No. I can honestly say I'll be honest, and I make sure I don't tread into the grounds of sort of confidential discussions and all that. But I can honestly say that the way I rationalized it was, not only have we got the core of the same team of last year, who are decent, the same management team, same chief exec, same board.
Yeah. Continuity.
We know this works, right? But we're not having, in fact, the team is better. We've recruited better players. I thought Rowe, Wayne Carlisle, they're proper dial. So what is going wrong? We had a little bit of playing the players out of position, just trying to be a little bit too clever at times. We had Hargreaves playing at the back a bit. We lost a bit of that midfield push and power. But I remember, it's funny, I thought we had a board meeting, I remember, just a routine board meeting, but nonetheless, clearly you talk about results. And it's funny, everybody in the board around our consortium, they sit in the same order around the table. And with the greatest respect to my colleagues, I've got some people to my left who I'd say were the least knowledgeable about football, and who'd kind of have knee-jerk reaction. And the ones who knew something about football are on my right. And I started on my left. Oh, this could go badly. We're going to be down on the numbers for doing something about Bucks before I get to the people who know what they're talking about. Actually, even the people who I think were less knowledgeable said, we stick to the plan.
Yeah.
When things are going well, you stick to the plan. Things are going badly, you stick to the plan. And we did. And we had to do a little bit of just finessing of what we did, and just I think returning to basics a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, there's never a prospect of us.
I love that. And that is a lesson to football clubs and people who run them, just to say that if the process is there, it can go wrong at times, but as long as you've got enough to keep believing it, it will swing back round.
Yeah.
I think, of course, if you keep failing, it probably isn't wise to carry on doing exactly the same things with exactly the same people. Yeah.
If we got to Christmas, at the end of the day, if we got to Christmas and we're completely out of the title, you think, right, unless there's something going on. But at the end of the day, we're still 6-7 games in?
Yeah, I was still. It was a
start September. That was. Yeah.
It was just a little bit of hangover from the previous season.
And that's the thing with playoffs, like the hangover. They always say the hardest thing is to get rid of a playoff hangover.
It's awful. If you lose, it's awful. If you win, it's awful. Because if you win, as we did, everyone buggers off. Sorry if I excuse my language. And you don't start your pre-season until you're behind everyone else.
No.
So that then you have a slow start. So there was a lot of playoffs have a lot to answer for.
So
fun though they are.
We start getting the wins. We won at Cambridge, if my memory serves me, a late winner. Was it Hargreaves or someone scored? And next thing
Wayne Carlisle, I think.
Wayne Carlisle was it. Then we were beating Stevenage 3-0. We started to rise up the table. Didn't we went on a really big run?
17 games or something.
Unbeaten, I think. 14 games unbeaten after, including Northwich. So, Alex, I guess...
sorry to interrupt. Let's go back. There's just 2 features I want to pick up on, which does answer your question. The first one was where I was apoplectic. And I had Tony Carter calming me down, and that's saying something because he's pretty volcanic. Was that game at when we were away at Forest Green?
Yeah.
If you recall, the spine of our team was dismantled in that Pope went off injured.
Yeah.
Our centre forward, our 20-goal a season centre forward, goes in goal, and Chris Todd goes off with an injury that ultimately led to revealing of his.
It saved his life, basically, didn't it? Really.
So we were, to be honest, we're in a spot of bother here, and then we concede a needless corner in about the 45th plus 2 minutes, and we go in. I think was it 1-0 down. And the thing that annoyed me was we didn't have a keeper on the bench.
Yeah, risky that, isn't it?
And I thought, this is what a suicidal, stupid thing to do. Oh my God, the next 45 minutes we were magnificent.
Yeah.
I know we scored a bit of a streaky goal. Is it Matt Green? Just, it was a sweet strike, but it just caught the hip of the defender and that lovely bit of curl out of the keeper's reach. They missed a penalty. And the momentum, so one time I disgraced myself I say one time, I had more than those probably, but being in their director's box and over celebrating. And you're surrounded by the enemy. You think, oh my God, I might have overdone that a bit. But that was such a game. Well, I'm just going to go back to the trophy final, if I may.
Yes, I remember that.
Which was the end of the 07-08 season.
Yeah.
And obviously we were disappointed. It was a shocking week. But it was only a quarter of the disappointment of the Exeter City defeat at home.
Yeah.
And actually, we learned a hell of a lot from that.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the Royal box, as you do, looking across at Ebbsfleet's fans celebrating. I'm thinking, next year, that will be us.
Yeah.
I just reflected on, and we made so many better decisions in terms of the build up to the playoff final and all of that, which we wouldn't have done had we got past Ebbsfleet that day.
That's what you've got to learn. That's what you learn from failure. I always say this.
Exactly.
That's just in life in general. You learn the most about yourself and what your process is when it doesn't quite go right. I love that.
Absolutely.
And
that's what I liked about the Paul Buckle was in the semi-final when we grinded out the Histon game. My goodness me, that Michael Poe, I don't know how he got that. Touched the ball to put onto the crossbar. What a save. Probably one of the best saves I've ever seen.
Oh, my
keepers we had that year, Bevan and Poe.
But obviously we had the Cambridge game before where they were behind, weren't they, in their semi-final, and then they turned it around in extra time and they're all going mad in the changing room. They're all having pitch celebrations and all that. And us, it was kind of, we've done the job, but we haven't finished the job yet.
Chris Hargreaves showing off his pecs and
he was being a bit childish, but
that was such a great attitude. It was
perfect. We won it. We won the playoff final that day in a way. I always say
I agree. Interesting point there as well about the importance of goalkeepers, because as you say in the first season with Righty, God bless him, and also Rayner
Anderson,
they just for all their qualities they weren't quite of the right sort to get us over the line twice, if you see what I mean, in the final and playoffs. Whereas actually we invested quite heavily in two
incredible goalkeepers.
And actually we needed them both. Without that, we could have faltered again.
That save that Pope made in Histon, the save that Pope made in the final.
Yeah, that was a great save as well.
But also all the Bevan coming out. I've never seen such a commanding goalkeeper. I know he's 6'5", whatever it was, but just the most commanding goalkeeper I've ever seen.
He's a strong guy as well. Oh my God.
What a bloke. I love getting them both on Goals Eye View, but I have no idea how to do it.
No, I don't know do they not coach these days?
I think one was a coach,
you probably get hold of them if you look hard enough.
So that 08-09 season, because we only just scraped in the playoffs on the final day as well. That's the thing. We beat Burton, and before that we drew at Barrow. And Chris Hargreaves scored that late goal. And I remember in his autobiography, Buckle basically said, you were awful out there. He's had to come and rescue again.
He had a bereavement, I think, in the week before. He was very angry. I was there that night, and he scored right in front of us. And he was raging when he scored that goal. It was worth the trip.
Before we get to the Cambridge game, actually, I want to talk about Chris Todd. I can't quite remember the timelines of it. What was that like from all of your point of view? And in a way, how did his sort of inspirational sort of galvanize it? Because you've got the human element of it all, but you've also got, how does Buckle get the team back to it the next week? I remember it in the newspaper at the time, I'm going to beat it. There was so much that sort of message. I know it's a really tough question, but how did that kind of fit into the squad? And do you reckon it really did play a part in that togetherness?
Yes. Mainly, the squad was a massively together group anyway. You have to understand, it's pretty hard to, when you hear stories of last season's dressing room, you think, oh my God, there's no togetherness here at all. This group, the 08-09 group, were very together. And quite often when you come to Torquay, which is as a limb, to be honest, in football terms. Your support group, your friendship group has to come from the squad.
Yeah.
Or else it can be lonely.
Yeah.
And actually, these guys really worked hard at that togetherness. So when Chris Todd, I think, broke the news to the squad, it was, it was devastating news at the time. I remember from a personal point of view, Chris, seeing Chris before the game that Silsey scored. I can't remember who we were the next, where he famously grabbed the Todd shirt out of the dugout and
Lewis at home, I think it was.
And Chris's mum. Sorry, who was that?
Lewis at home, I think that was.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. Yeah. And Chris's mum and dad were there with me, and I remember talking to them and saying, look, this is a football is very secondary here. This is about Chris, who, by the way, is a lion. I mean, strong as an ox, awkward. Even in training, he kicks you. He's one of those people. He's a lovely lad, by the way, as I'm sure you all know, but hard as nails. And if ever leukemia is going to take on somebody that want a proper opponent, choose Chris Todd. Absolute legend of a guy. I remember there's two things that stick in my mind. One is talking to Chris and his parents and saying, look, we've got this. You go and get better. Don't worry about your security of your job, all of that. We'll see that through. The second thing I did, which is probably, well, I thought it was important at the time. I can remember saying to Paul Buckle, I don't think it's fair for us to go into this season where promotion is really important to us, to build on last season, and you not have the equivalent of Chris's kind of salary to actually invest in the squad. Because I want to make sure that we're not lacking for that, because that's not going to help anybody in this situation. We need to have the success and all that. And in fairness, I tell you somebody who turned out to be a great signing. Although some might say, well, it was towards the latter end of his career, but it was Lee Hodges. Who ultimate professional. I mean, ultimate professional. Came to the club probably, this was almost like to be his last season, sort of playing competitive football at that level. But he's exactly who you need in a crisis. Build in at that sort of left centre-back role. Somebody you bring on in the 82nd minute, like James Milner, just to sort of shore things up and stand in front of the left back and just keep the other guys from your half of the pitch. And Lee Hodges did a great job, I thought, standing in there.
I love that.
So it did galvanise us. And actually what helped again is Chris's recovery, because he recovered it
so quick. Yeah,
and he was out to Salisbury, I think, to get match fit. Him and Michael Brough, I think, went out there together. And just to see him playing there, and they loved him there as well, because he's such a wholehearted warrior of a player. And then to get him fit for that running, it is like signing a new player.
I imagine it would be.
So it was great, absolutely great, and no one deserved it more than Chris. Given he kind of blamed himself for the whole Ebbsfleet thing.
Bless him.
Tried to run the ball out and all of that, which didn't happen to anybody. Let's face it, we were missing chances at the other end.
It's the fact we missed out 3 open goals that day.
Absolutely. And that wasn't Chris's fault. So for him to come back and then be part of the triumph was fabulous. Great story.
I love that. FA Cup run as well. So I'm interjecting on Clive's part here, but FA Cup run. See, for me, from a personal point of view, I followed Torquay religiously from basically when you came in, actually, 2007. I didn't really go to many games. Don't ask me why. I just don't think I was I just like watching the Sky Sports News come through. I don't think I was big on loud noises in those days.
Fair enough.
I only went to
there were a few loud ones then as well.
Yeah, there were. So I'm better now though. But I think
good.
But I went to 3 or 4 in that era, and one of them was the Coventry game, obviously. I think, that game was, how on earth we did not win that game. I mean, we beat Blackpool and everyone to get to that, but I will still never understand how we didn't win that game.
Championship team as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely outplayed them.
Non-league,
And we were outstanding in that game.
Amazing,
And it's very hard, but it's on the record, so this can't be erased. But I remember Roscoe Desane, who I thought was a good player, actually, to be fair. But he was roughly the penalty spot, right in front of me. Not many people around him, and he cleared the bar.
I remember it.
And honestly, that's probably a £500,000 miss.
Yeah.
So I thought if we'd got that in, they wouldn't have had time to go.
Because we've never reached the 5th round, have we? Not to have it in the Roscoe if you're watching. We've never reached 5th, and who knows? I think we were at Blackburn away. I think we were bad from what I remember.
I should pay tribute to Paul Buckle here on this, because what he did, and personally, I was never very comfortable with going into the dressing room. I just didn't like it. I think it's a football environment. It's the manager's domain. I don't want players in the boardroom, and they don't want me in the dressing room, frankly. So I stayed away from it. Apart from FA Cup days, where we had a ritual where we went to the Livermead, I think it was Livermead Cliff Hotel. We hired a room for lunch at about, a pre-match lunch, and we set up videos of all of our goals to get, and Jackie and my wife and I were invited to go and watch with the squad before the game, and it just set up the FA Cup as meaning something. And I'm sure that does not happen these days, but it really made a difference.
It needs to happen more, especially with replays and stuff like that. Because we've got replays as well. Massive. If it was a 0-0, and that would have been decent. I can't remember what league. Yeah, Coventry Championship in those days. Was
there a slight disappointment though that it wasn't a Premier League Premier League side, or did you kind of view it as an opportunity, thinking we can beat them?
You have to. I mean, you're right. We didn't draw. What Coventry, with the greatest respect to them, were not the top tier draw that we were looking for, obviously. And I remember we all assembled in the Gull'S Nest there to watch it live on TV, as you do in those days. And we didn't get the big name out of the hat. But once we'd got into the game, we still had a full house. Still had good coverage, good prize money at stake. And we're playing great. I thought, next time we'll get through this, get into the hat, we'll have that even better opportunity of pulling the big name out of the hat. And it just wasn't to be.
No.
It was heartbreaking.
That was a header from a corner, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Was it
I still remember it.
Scored? I can remember it.
Elliot Ward, I think.
Elliot Ward, sorry. You're dead right.
I'll tell you what, though. I was gutted for about 20 minutes after that game. But then when you reflect on what a cup run that was, because obviously starting in the preliminary round, going all the way through, it was a magnificent achievement.
It was
incredible.
And also some of the away fans, I remember, did we play, you guys are so much better at this than me, but was it I can't even pronounce
someone before
the lower league, non-league, even the clubs below us.
Was it Evesham?
Wearing the pirate hats in boots and all of this.
It might have been Chipstead even. I don't know.
but their fans made a magnificent contribution to the whole thing. Do you remember they scored, the club I'm thinking of scored a magnificent free kick.
It was a screamer, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was. I think it was Chipstead.
They sneaked 10 yards on the blimmin' where the foul was committed, which is a bit naughty. Having said that, what a screamer. And their fans were brilliant. They just added to the whole.
I love games like that. That's what I miss at Play More than most these days, is the fact, all due respect to the great fans who travel to games, but I just like to see the full away end or fullish away end. I like to see, as horrible it is when you concede, at least let me see like the away fans going for it, not just a bit of silence and about 30 odd fans making a bit of a racket. You hear more groans from Torquay fans these days, sadly. I do miss that side of it a lot.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
But let's talk about the day. Should we talk about the day? Cambridge, Wembley. What were your feelings going into that day?
I was pretty confident that we, as I said earlier, that we had learned some lessons.
Yeah.
And I know Colin described the previous effort at the FA Trophy final as like going to a wedding with our suits and all that.
Yeah.
I left my suit there. I thought I'm never wearing that again. Left it in the cupboard, the hotel. This year, the players have got it spot on. Bucks have got it spot on.
Yeah.
And so I was very I woke up early. I remember it's a blazing hot day, if you guys can recall that. And I walked down at there was nobody about, maybe 6:30, 7 a.m. to the Bobby Moore statue. And I remember saying to Bobby Moore, or at least his image, we could do with your help today, mate. If there's any chance you could have a word, it would be helpful. So I remember all that. Then you have the excitement of, for me, I love getting to the ground early. And of course, we're all suited and booted a bit, which these days, maybe that doesn't happen, but we were like that. We have a lovely lunch. And I remember thinking, right, how inebriated do I need to be for this? Do I need the anesthetic, or do I need to be on the edge of enjoyment, but be able to retain everything, all of the ins and outs of the day? And I thought I probably was beginning to overindulge. And then I think it was Dominic said to me, we want you on the pitch. We're going to do a Q&A. I thought, oh my God. So suddenly you've got to sober up. And I remember going down, and by the way, the staff at Wembley are fantastic. You're ushered down from the dining room in a lift out onto the pitch. And that's probably, I don't know, by that time, maybe 25,000 in the ground, of which the Cambridge contingent are singing "Who the effing hell are you?" So that's a nice start. And then doing a bit of a Q&A on the pitch and all of that, and it just brought it home to me, the kind of the enormity of it all. And then I remember sitting in the Royal box with Martin O'Neill.
Wow. Yeah, because he led it. I remember it now. Yeah,
and chatting to him in the first half, and then it's a bit like the Queen at the cup final. He then moved off, and his good lady sat next to me. And actually, that was really helpful for me because the clock winds down so slowly that I just wanted to talk to her about what her kids did, what university they went to, what mine did. I almost didn't want to watch it. Do you know what I mean? Because every time I look back, the clock had barely moved. And it was that sort of stress that you go through. And we never really, I mean, two things, there are two things that will always stick in my mind. One is, I thought Elliot Benyon was brave as a lion to draw that tackle that ultimately got the guy sent off.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was classic centre-forward play.
Everyone did their roles like that, didn't they?
If you mistime this, yes, I get clattered, but you go off.
Yeah.
And he got that perfectly right. And I also remember Wayne Carlisle delivering the world's greatest cross, but actually winning the header in the build-up to that.
Yeah,
do you remember
it was such a good counter-attack.
I mean, Wayne Carlisle, what a player. I know he had a difficult start with his time with us for historical and injury reasons. Oh my God, what an addition. But the thing that's, having won, and I was so excited and did an interview with Radio Devon and all of that. Went back to the hotel, had no expectation of seeing the team because they wanted to get back to Devon and all the rest of it. But actually, unbeknown to me, they'd stopped at the hotel we were staying in, and they came in with the trophy and their medals. And honestly, it was so emotional.
Yeah,
tears, just all of that, and hearing Wayne talk to me about that's the beauty of being in a position where you can talk to players about what happened. Yeah, and they can give it how they saw it.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Wayne saying to me, because you can see Wayne doing this. He looked up. And he said, "I looked up and I saw Danny Stevens." He says, "He's too small." And then I saw
was it Benyon?
Elliot Benyon, and he said, "Too unreliable." and then I saw Silsey, and if you see it, the cross is perfect.
It's
amazing. Wayne in that Irish lilt telling me, just talking me through that moment is like special for me.
We had the privilege of having Tim Sills on here, and he said it from his point of view. Incredible. This gives you chills because as fans, I've watched that hundreds and hundreds of times, but hearing from the players, what I can never get in my mind, what it's like to be on a pitch from like a player's point of view and see the game like that. I think it's just incredible. I mean, I love goals like that. I love goals like that.
That's a proper football goal.
That is this Pep Guardiola stuff. That's a proper goal.
Defending your own box.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. You know what? Once Hargreaves scored the first half, I never feared for us that day, and that's ridiculous because we always mess it up on the big occasion. We never turn up, do we? But honestly, I thought we were fine. Red card. I did think game over. Honestly, so it was icing on the cake, but I tell you what, though, guys. The thing that also strikes me as well is, especially when and it's always dangerous to do this, but when you compare teams from different eras, look at the bench we had that day.
Yeah, amazing.
There's some serious players on that bench who were not in the team, like Carriol, I think, and Lee Hodges, Matt Green, I think, maybe on the bench. I mean, these were decent players. It shows you how good our team must have been to keep that lot on the bench.
I can't remember. Someone said it to me once. I think it might have been even you in like the goals in the Nest bit years ago. But it said with Buckle, the best thing to get when you sign a loan striker and you're not playing it. I think you might have said in your article actually, about the strength of that squad when we'd sign players and they won't play him. But it's like, that's making my striker score more goals because he knows he's got a very good player behind him, which means that loan player's worth it. And that is exactly what he did that season.
Actually, I've got a good story about a lone player who I won't name or the club, but because I only knew about it recently when Bucks told me when we met up over Christmas. But it's interesting about the standards that Buckle set. And I suspect Paul Wootton will do exactly the same. He feels like a similar sort of character.
Yeah, it does feel very similar.
But I mean, my wife and I once went over to a training session where Bucks was doing, here's a command and control coach. Very, but you listen, right? I said to my wife, for God's sake, turn your phone off. If it goes off when he's in full flow, we're in big trouble. And I remember once we took a player. It's quite hard sometimes to get an EFL side to lend you a player, and when you do, they kind of expect you to use them.
Play him in this role, play him that amount of time. Yeah.
So we brought this lad down, and in training he took a shortcut, right? So he thought he got away with it, but our players saw him do it. They knew that Buckle knew. So it was a massive test of Paul's character here to say to this guy, who's a good player, you're going back. And when you send a player back, and he's been there about an hour, the host club is not best pleased with you, because you're and in fact you quite often risk a relationship going forward.
Yeah.
But it showed the standards that there was never any compromise. And I think that's really.
I thought he was going to say you gave him a telling off.
No, you just off you go. So that's why that's about compromise and about standards and about togetherness.
Yeah.
So you don't let any of that get in the way of
no players better than I think it's really important when it's like these youngsters, and we've kind of had that dynamic a lot the last few years, where it's just these players have come out of academies and all that, and they're just not ready to fight for Torquay United. They're not ready to fight for the rest of it. Very interesting dynamic. So I mean, moving forward, we've kind of summed it already actually, but to sort of cap off those 2 seasons, what were like the best moments, and we can't go to the best moments, but the differences? What were the actual differences that got us over the line that year? And what was your favourite team? Because for me, 07-08 was all about, it got me completely in love with football and Torquay United. But 08-09 was more, we're getting it done. It was more like, no, we're just going to get this job done.
I think the difference was actually recognizing what it was that we needed to do differently or better.
Yeah.
And I think it was about recruitment, to be honest. But my sense was that we were a powerful outfit in that first season. And we could do not many clubs would outdo us for power. You have, even the kids, even the young lads like Ellis and Robertson, they're big guys. You don't mess with them. And Hargreaves in midfield, Mansell, Nico. These are all big pros. Sills and I love Sills and Phillips up front as a combo. Zabrowski, I mean, another big guy. And I can remember, I don't know, somebody was, as you do, you're moaning about Zabrowski, doing this, doing that. And Paul Buckle remember saying, Chris Zabrowski always pushes a team up the pitch. If you've got him on your team, the fence has to switch on. You're causing problems for them. No matter what you might think about the touch or whatever.
He was such a good player on his day.
Absolutely. So when you have that combination of Zabrowski, Sills, Phillips, Elliot Benyon, Danny Stevens, I mean, God, the options are almost endless. The bit we were missing, I thought, and I think we made up for this, was that bit of craft and guile. So when Nicky Rowe was signed, I thought he was a big difference for us. And also, and interestingly, again, I can remember Bucks telling me that Nicky, when he started, it's quite hard to, kind of break into the camaraderie of the players. And I can remember him saying that he told Nicky to deliberately leave one on Hargreaves in training, just be a bit late into a ball. And that woke Hargreaves up, clearly. And Hargreaves spent the rest of the time trying to kick him back. And actually, they had a bit of a hammer and tongs proper session. And after that, that was when Nicky Rowe arrived, became part of the setup.
So clever by Bucko, wasn't it?
And it is.
So
absolutely
clever.
It's about the psychology of that. And I thought Nicky Rowe is a big difference. And I think Wayne Carlisle was a big difference.
You're right, because at midfield, you need that creative element. I think that's the problem with Torquay, especially last season. It was a lot of it, sorry to say it, a lot of players who were just kind of the hard-working lot. And especially as the game's changed, it was hard working and that, he grafts a bit like Everton as well. They could give 100%, but no, you need that technical ability. You just need technical ability.
I think that's a very shrewd observation. In my opinion, looking at Torquay United and lower league, non-league football for the last 15 years, I suppose, from director to normal fan, I would say, and what I've seen actually watching my son play in the youth setup at Torquay United right through to under 18, what I've seen is the standard of coaching is exponentially better now than it was for the likes of Chris Hargreaves coming through the system. With great respect to his coaches, they are coaches are coached The teams
Yes.
profit.
Exactly. Yeah, they come through a
All of
system
that.
now. Yeah.
So you very rarely get a player who's not technically quite adept, which is why we're now seeing a lot more, not exactly playing out from the back a la Pep, but you are getting.
I think Torquay will be next season.
Well, the better teams.
Yeah,
absolutely. But the better teams who we saw at Playmore, I thought did try and keep it on the deck and play.
Yeah.
But they were quick. You can't play without pace.
No.
And we had
That's what Torquay's gone wrong the last few years. 100%.
You know,
in many ways, but yeah, that's where it's gone wrong. No, it's very interesting.
I do hope this group has got some pace.
Yeah, it looks like from what I've been reading, there's a nice bit of technical ability and hard work from what I've seen from the first few signings. Also, I've never seen it, but just what you read. Yeah, wow. I mean, what an era! What an era. Going forward, then.
Yeah.
Have Clive, Tom, we've got any questions before we go forward?
Yeah, I've got one. Just about overall your time as chairman. Can you tell us your best moment as chairman, and also probably your worst or most difficult decision that you ever had to make whilst you were running the club?
Those are really good. But both of those are good questions, actually, because the risk of sounding, I don't know, somehow cold or whatever the expression might be. I think one of the things you have to do in life, and in football especially, is just treat triumph and disaster just the same as far as you can, and not get too excited when things are going well, and not get too downhearted.
Yes, that is the quote we're all saying at the moment,
badly.
isn't it?
And I've always been a bit like that in terms of, you know, the business side of my life, and for the most part, I have to treat Torquay United as a business and let other people treat it as a club, because that's what we were trying to do. And in terms of the best moment,
yes, you got to say playoffs.
Probably. to say the first day,
I love that.
That first press conference where actually people are asking you questions. Me?
Yeah, imagine the transition was mental.
I almost can't believe it. I think, what am I doing here? You know, it's and you've got people like, you know, you've got like Colin Lee next to me, and got John.
Did you ever
Milton.
feel a little bit like not out of place? But do you know what I mean? Where you go, oh, okay.
I've spent a whole career like that, mate. I mean, there's. I wouldn't say. The beauty of the one thing you learn very quickly, I think, when you are associated with Torquay United from a director point of view, ownership point of view, is the level of responsibility. And I actually, if you talk to me about things I remember, which maybe the things I remember are the highlights, even if to you they would seem like normal things. I remember I quite enjoy. This is no hardship, by the way. Quite enjoy a beer, so I would go down into the pub. Boots and have a beer on a match day, and just if anyone wanted to have a chat, always tried to be open and honest and transparent as far as I could with fans who wanted to chat. Always very happy with that. And I remember I walked through the cupboard, essentially, which gets you from the main football under the stand, which gets you from the main football club into the pub, and you go through the function suite. And as I walked through the function suite, there was a meeting going on. I'm not sure what of, but a group of supporters who were, maybe it may have been the forerunner of the Trust or Supporters Club, whatever it might be, big gathering. And they said, do you mind doing a Q&A? I said, cool, this is completely unprompted and unrehearsed. I said, yeah, of course not. And actually, I probably spent, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, just answering questions from people. And do you know, that is the highlight of stuff. I really enjoyed doing that.
That's great.
Brilliant. I mean, you just could have done with that.
After I was just saying, after what we've just had with the football club, I mean, that does kind of lead us on to Clive's question in a minute, actually, which we'll hold that thought. But we'll just talk about kind of the end of your sort of era and how you don't have to go into the details, but like, because if I'm honest, all I remember is all the good times. I don't actually really remember like when you sort of weren't as involved and what it was like going into the football league. I don't actually know what moment you properly sort of stopped being.
Well, it's interesting, and this is something I do reflect on quite a bit. Is when I stood down. Sorry, my dog has just joined me.
Cute dog.
Yeah, we'll see. There were two things really. I'm a busy guy, still am or was then, and I'm very conscious that we had 10 members of our consortium. And I have to say that, and this is, I think, if I was to offer any kind of advice to the Brink consortium, it is about communicating not only with fans and your external stakeholders, but massively with your own consortium. Because these 10 people aren't used, they're used to running their own businesses, not used to being told what to do, or in that sense. So you have to keep people in the loop.
Yeah.
And I worked hard at that for 2 years. And I also had a personal ambition, I think, is to get us into the Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes...
It was almost like gold medal thing. It was almost like, not gold medal depression, but it was almost a bit like that in a way.
It was. I mean, the bit we've, if I look on about what, I'll come on to the failures in a minute. But in terms of the successes, for me personally, having been the chairman that got us back into the Football League, I thought, I can't top this.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard.
Okay.
And also, so I thought, I will quit while I'm ahead.
Okay, yeah.
That was one of my feelings, and which on reflection may have been maybe not the right thing to do. But I was also very conscious that there are 10 of us and very able people, people who'd invested in the club, who deserved an opportunity to be chairman if they wanted to be. Because I
just remind us when you finished, Alex, as chairman.
I did about 3 months in the Football League. So I did not quite Christmas of 2009, I suppose. Yeah, something like 2.5 years, something like that. And actually, it was a bit of a weight off my shoulders, because I quite liked, I felt I'd done all I could.
You could enjoy your work almost. You can enjoy as a fan, almost a fan again.
I could, but I think other people who are ambitious, and nobody's overtly ambitious. I didn't ever feel under pressure to go, by the way. I think actually other people were too busy to do it. But there's certainly one. Simon Baker was, excellent vice chairman, deserved to be chairman, whilst we were in a strong position.
Yeah.
And I was more than happy to hand over and let him take the club forward, as indeed he did. He's very effective chairman, very good at what he did. And so that's the reason why I stood down. The bit I regret, particularly, the bit that still rankles is, and this will be the challenge for the Brink Consortium, is how do you build a sustainable football model in Torquay? And that is a challenge.
Yeah.
And the only way, I think, in my era, this will be on the record, I think we made a profit maybe twice out of however many years, and that is through player sales and cut runs.
Which is why they're giving young players on 2-year deals already.
But you can't rely on that for your model. So actually, you've got to find a way. I mean, in my day, Torquay United was probably a £2.5 to £3.5 million business, depending on sales, cut runs, etc. I felt I need to get this to 6, and then we'll make sufficient funds that actually there won't be a cash call on directors or going forward. We won't be financially stretched, but actually it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest with myself for the 2.5 years I was there, I didn't really progress that as much as I should have done. So
because you had fun. We had fun.
Well, I reached out to Michael Westcott the other day just to wish him all the best. I think he's gracious enough to reply. But the one thing I did say to him was, you mustn't forget to enjoy this.
Yeah.
You've got to have fun, and it doesn't matter what you do in life, by the way.
Life
is serious these days, by the way.
The memories that you get, that your consortium gave all of us for life, it got me into football and Torquay United.
That's great, absolutely.
That's more important than anything.
I don't think you should beat yourself up either, because I can't remember a chairman that's had a sustainable football club. I can't remember Torquay really being, because Bateson put quite a lot of money in and then maybe became more reluctant. Obviously, it was a lot more difficult in your day because you were trying to sustain a football league club. That's one of the advantages that Bryn have got, is that, let's be honest, they're starting at a very low level.
Yeah.
And I think I'm hoping people will buy into it as well, in terms of not being too, in terms of expectations not being too high perhaps for this season, because
it's a rebuilding,
getting the finances right is the first thing and the most important thing.
Give me 1 or 2 years of having, not mediocre, but just being a bit slower than we thought, to build it properly long term after what's happened, I think, in our point. But in your era, it's totally different, because coming out of the Football League, then time to get straight back, it's a completely different situation in that regards, I think.
It is. I agree. And I certainly felt we were a Football League club in waiting, and it would be inappropriate and not what was expected of us to just sit there and let things happen. We had to make things happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, as a group, as directors, executives, management and squad. I think we did for those from the playing perspective. I think the other thing that's important for the next consortium is, and you have to get a balance here, because really the most interesting and most important part of any football club is probably the first team and the results, because it gives you your showcase, something to focus on. But you need to remember your responsibilities to your community, whether it's through South Devon College, through your coaching.
Writing, please, from the previous years.
It is important. Well, we work with Paynton, what was then Paynton Community College. But the reason why that's important is because when you have a bad Saturday or a bad Tuesday night, the world doesn't come to an end. You have to remember the next morning there are still people depending on Torquay United to do a good thing, do good work.
Oh, it's our escape and everything. It's our escape. We don't support this club for the glory either. Can we just all point out? We support it for the community and then maybe the chance of glory. But I think that's what makes Torquay so special. And I think that's why, we've seen that message already.
Yeah, fans are fab. The fans were magnificent in my time. I remember we played Salisbury away, and we were I think we were in their record crowd ever because of away fans.
Yeah.
Going to watch
always
the
like
game.
good away sounds,
That's phenomenal. Really, really good stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think Clive's go on. Yeah.
I suppose this is maybe the last one, because you've certainly given
it's an incredible
the consortium quite a lot of good advice. I mean, you're obviously still a supporter of the club, Alex. Just reflections on maybe the last 10 years, you've been watching as a
what's
fan.
It been like as a fan? First of all, going from a director to a fan.
I would say the Ashton Gate day was right up there with one of the worst football days of my life. I thought it was awful. And we never got over that.
No, we had to have a complete rebuild. We talk about playoff hangovers, but I think you had to completely wipe it after that day. I think that's where the club went wrong. I think that's what the club went wrong.
The bit I cannot understand is with the Clark Osborne thing. And I met him a couple of times, and actually he was gracious, personable, listened to what I had to say, and all of that. So I'm not going to just criticize him straight off. But the bit I cannot understand, and I wish I could ask him, is why he persisted in putting so much money into the club year on year, for which I think a large proportion of it was wasted. And I honestly think
I've never understood that.
I think
he got nothing from it, did he? And of
no,
course,
he got nothing from it. And then in the end, you get the situation where he says, "Right, enough's enough. I'm out of here," leaving us in this dreadful situation that Bryn have done so well to salvage. Given that I guess they were in competition for the club as well, so it's all very difficult. But I think if we had that kind of money, we'd have been pushing for promotion.
That's a bit I never understand with the money that was coming in. How, from Clark Osborne's point of view, he just didn't get right. Let's get all the football people that we've kind of got now with Warnock and you had in your day.
Absolutely.
I just never understand as a businessman how he put all that money in and then didn't properly research and put the people in to make that. Even if you're literally never going to go to a game, whatever, and not for me, but whatever, but put people in charge who are going to make the magic happen. And that's a bit I will never understand.
I completely agree with that. And I know in our day we had Colin Lee, we had John Milton, people who knew the game.
Yeah.
And honestly, people like us who are laundrymen in Torquay, we don't know the game. And having their experience, honestly, was invaluable. And I think it's a masterstroke for Bryn to bring in Neil Warnock, who
genius,
clearly knows the game
and the marketing and everything.
It's been top class. So I am incredibly enthusiastic about the new season, and I wish them every success because they deserve it.
Been a crazy 6 months, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been a crazy. And I actually got fed up with it last season. There were times when
I didn't go to one game.
It takes. I mean, I go because I like to have a beer with my friends, right? And the football was in danger of becoming a very secondary part of
it was for like last season. It was completely.
And then Gary Johnson, starts to shout at the crowd and so. Oh my god! When you get to that state, I remember I had an issue actually with this. It's quite interesting. Paul Buckle, God bless him, young manager, was getting some serious stick behind him, and this turns out to be a happy ending, by the way. Serious stick behind him and sounded off at this person. Anyway, a couple of days later, I went into the club, got some mail, opened it up, letter of complaint about my manager's language and the invective that he'd So I thought, okay, what am I going to do about this? I noted the address was literally around the corner from the club. So I thought, I'll go around and see them. So I actually walked around, banged on the door, and this person came who I did recognize. So I clearly clocked them in the club and said, I don't know if you know who I am, but I've come in response to your letter. And he said, I know who you are. So I went in and apologized, because what can you do? Usual spiel about, young manager gets emotional, but he shouldn't have reacted the way he did, and we're sorry. Which the guy and his wife very graciously accepted. And then, great credit to Bucks, he went round later and with a bunch of flowers. So there you go. That is the kind
that's how you do it. Yeah.
I remember stuff like that more than I do some of the big games, the big moments, because that's about making sure you do the right thing, the right behaviors.
I love that. I love that.
They're not mutually exclusive, are they? Being a successful businessman and being a decent bloke and caring about the community and the fans, you can do both of those two things, we hope.
And I think it's smart business, by the way.
Yeah, it's smart business.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so simple. It's honestly, that's why I never understood. Don't fall out with your own fans like we've been having for the last couple of years.
I mean, why would you do that?
I never understood it. It was
don't understand that.
Yeah,
it is.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
so important.
The numbers, especially
out of it, but it was just people came to us more. But like that's because that's the only fans that we could only have a voice. We were like, what is all this? It's crazy. But seriously, it was horrendous to the point that we just couldn't go anymore, could you?
And considering how poor the season's been last season, especially the fact we were still, selling out our education at Western, taking 600 to Yeovil, going across the south of the country and beyond. It's just incredible support, the Yellow Army. I mean, I think fans in Devon, especially football fans in Devon, I think are some of the loyalist fans out there.
Southwest football is rising now.
Southwest football is rising, and it's it's thriving at the moment, and it's good to see. But when you get to a stage where you're going to these games and you've seen the same game over and over and over again, you're underperforming, and to have your manager turn around at you because he can't take a bit of flack and basically tell you to stuff your support or stuff. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. Support the team. It's like, well, we're here, mate.
Crazy.
Torquay United, you're not bigger than the football club, and no manager ever should be bigger than the football club and its supporters especially. But
I agree, and the bit that I think where I lost a bit of heart was the beginning of last season, was when the retained list included a whole bunch of players who frankly should not have been retained, and because for various reasons, around their how robust they were, how many games you're going to get out of them, it was just frankly lazy recruiting.
So we've got relegated, haven't we? We've got relegated that spring. We've managed to win sort of 3 games in April, and suddenly that means we've got a really good squad. It's just lazy. Really poor.
He spent all the budget as well. This thing, because I know Dom said it brilliantly on episode. It's almost like going in for your weekly shot and spending it all in the first 3 aisles. And like, we've only got 2 strikers. It's like that. Where apparently people say we've got. Or I've read someone with slightly lower budget. Yeah, but we're showing already what you can do. Be creative with any budget.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Brink Consortium will be, and I'm sure Paul Wooten, it will be very. Buckle owned his budget. There was never any. I'd never had a sense that I'm going to give you X amount of money, and he's going to come in and say I've spent X plus. Never an issue with that. And Colin Lee's brilliant for that as well. They absolutely made sure that they treated the money as if it were their own in terms of the budget, and that's really important. And then if it was going to be a request or something comes up where you have to cover an injury, then actually you've got the facts.
You've got that faith. It's brilliant. It is brilliant. Well, I think this has been absolutely incredible. It's one of the best things
I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've.
Is there any other things? Any other things you want to say? You two want to ask questions? Is there anything towards the consultant we haven't said, or?
I've got a couple of social media things, if you don't mind, really quickly. I know taken up a lot of time today, but thank you again, Alex, for joining us.
Watch hours are going to go up for this.
So just a couple of questions from Facebook and Twitter. If they've already been said, then please, disregard. But Alan says, in your opinion, what are the differences, similarities between the ways Bryn Consortium are approaching things compared to your consortium? Notable differences?
Just very, I'd say I think we've covered quite a lot of that. I think my reflective answer to that is, I think they've been incredibly professional about the way they've introduced themselves, having all the advantages of modern media, which we didn't have, but hats off to them for that. I think the big difference is They've had to deal with the administration piece.
Yeah.
We had to deal with just a normal commercial operation, acquisition. So I think I would say their route is probably more stressful. Ours felt it was stressful at the time. I reckon theirs has been tougher. So hats off to them for that.
The next two, I think we've already covered. Barnaby Nichols says, what would your advice be to the new consortium? I think we've covered that already.
Yeah.
Ollie says, what's the, again, differences this time from your tenure? Rachel says, have you got your brush at the ready for Paint Up Plainmoor? And what initiative are you proud of, or one that you would introduce or suggest to the new consortium if you could?
I think I tell you, this is actually an interesting topic, because trusts and football supporters groups and the TUST, they become really significant.
Yeah, done great work.
And actually very helpful, usually in times of stress, right? So over the Roberts era, I remember quite a galvanizing, the trust and others galvanizing support and really pushing against the regime and being, in fairness, a constructive but opposition. The trouble is, when people like me come along, and my group, my consortium, we are supporters, and we largely do everything everybody wants us to do, largely. So the trust loses a bit of its raison d'etre, a bit of its purpose and focus. But what we did, and I did take the trouble to meet with representatives of the trust at the time, such as, names of Chris Fleet, I remember, John Mould, John Gibbs, and we did stuff they financed. Absolutely, hats off. So supporters finance things like a enhanced disabled supporters area for City. They financed, I think, reserve team matches or reserve team shirts, something like that. And I'm pleased that we, if you like, kept that liaison going.
Yeah.
Because it'd been quite easy to let all that go, because there was, as I say, there was no real sense of unjustness or focus, or really a situation whereby you were taking the fight to the ownership. That had gone. So I'm pleased we did that. And I think, again, I think in terms of keeping ties with the local community, whether it be supporters trust, whether it be with the hospitals, with schools, whatever it might be, I think that's something that we started to do and needs to be continued to develop.
I'm totally with you. Totally.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Alex, because my grandpa at that time, he lost his vision, but he had someone sat next to him and he was describing what was going on the pitch. It was fantastic, and he really benefited a lot from that. And unfortunately, it got scaled back, I think, after you left. But I'll always be thankful for that, because without my grandpa, he's not with us anymore. But I wouldn't be into Torquay United at all.
It's incredible.
I'm very happy to take my share of the credit, but I absolutely give credit to the supporters trust at that time, who absolutely worked hard to make that happen. So credit to them too.
Just a few more before we finish. Matt Mill says, in your opinion, briefly, what circumstances would a new stadium be feasible for the club?
Yeah, I think this is a very clearly quite a challenging topic. There's a but here, and I've never made any secret of this. In my day, I and some of my colleagues discussed the prospects of moving away from Plainmoor, as much as we loved it. And it goes back to my point earlier about sustainable football. And it wasn't, we're not property developers. It's not about us making a buck out of this. It was us trying to have a model which meant that where we played football also could do other activities for the benefit of the club. We knew we weren't going to make any money out of this whole journey. So it was never about that. But we definitely explored it. And if there is a way, and actually I don't think that this regime, for example, if they say we need to explore it, they should be given the chance to do that as long as they communicate with supporters throughout. Because any opportunity to bring better quality football and finance it at Plainmoor, they must take. You can't always rely on individuals to put their hands in their pockets. So there are circumstances.
It sounds like on that topic, right? As someone someone been in that. So I made the point, a bit of a rough point. I said, well, if a club, so the whole thing about having a 4G pitches you can rent out and all that, Would it? I know it'd take a whole load of finance. I'm not recommending this to the Brink Consortium, but just having some sort of complex, it's almost like a training complex, which you could also rent out for all those reasons and still have Plainmoor. And surely that would have not been an option at some point with like Osborne or anything like that. Sure, that's also an option moving forward, that we kind of build the kind of training complex, and you you have that, so you that way you can still keep Plainmoor and have that. That's just something I thought.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. When my first meeting with Clark Osborne, which was feels like 100 years ago, but when he first took over, I absolutely had an expectation that he would do that, because that artificial pitch, that's
I think it would make sense, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely would make sense. So yeah, I don't disagree with your point. So yes, I would explore it. Plainmoor is, I love it.
We love it, but it is limited.
But it was, I don't know. We were thinking about. Even the extent to which, and obviously my late and dear colleague Paul Bristow was thinking with others, that if we could have and this sounds, there's a lot of ifs here, if we could have relocated the swimming pool behind Plainmoor, just incorporated that bit of ground.
To swim there. Great.
I appreciate by the way, this is sensitive. I appreciate it's very precious for the local community. Never do anything that would have upset them.
Yeah.
But if we could have enhanced what they had and taken that bit of land,
everyone's a winner. Yeah.
Well, that may have made the difference.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're totally right.
But we never got to a position to explore that.
I'll say one more thing. I'm so happy you brought up that name, Paul Bristow. A little bit about him.
Oh,
just what was he like?
Oh, brilliant! And the whole family are brilliant.
Yeah.
This is one. Yeah, going back to advice for this consortium. If you can get a lottery winner, it doesn't half help. He was a top bloke, and I genuinely think he loved Torquay United anyway, and he loved being Thea. They loved being able to get involved with something, and I think meet with people that they hadn't hitherto met with.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely growing into his role, his vice chair there. And he's a bright guy. Thea's a very bright lady. They were, and I think that the tragedy of Paul's untimely demise, clearly it's above all else, it's a family tragedy.
Yeah.
But it's a tragedy for him and the football club, because
it was, 100%.
He was just getting into his stride, and that's the bit that
I think that was a big part. Yeah, that was a huge part.
No, he was. We went on holiday with him. Jackie and I, and our kids, we were, as you do when you go to a charity auction and you drink too much and you spend too much money on a prize. We ended up in Florida with them, so we've had great times with the business family.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that's what this whole journey for you and the football club and all that was all about, really. I mean, that's
absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time and so much for your time. Is there any more?
Yeah, there's 4 quick ones.
Okay,
I promise we're done, and then I promise we're done.
Well, it's either this or the debate on the TV with.
It's true, yeah.
It's either that or England Iceland.
To be fair, I think we'll get through these quite quick. Ollie says, do you believe that Torquay can get back into the EFL in 10 years or less?
Yes.
Did on my Football
Manager. Paul Bowell says, just out of interest, do you still keep in touch with Colin Lee as they work closely together for a few years?
No. And there's no reason particularly for that. Just that I've worked with chief executives and other businesses for 10 years, and I have no contact with them. It's just the way life is.
Yeah. But it's his business.
Yeah. Steve George, I don't know how much you can just say about this one, but did Paul Buckle know he was going to Bristol Rovers before that playoff final against Stevenage?
I don't know whether he knew before that, to be perfectly honest with you. But what I would say is, from my perspective, I had a sense that these journeys have a natural termination, and Bucks did a fantastic job for us.
Yeah.
But the thing I worked quite hard to do was to make sure we were well compensated. When he went, and this can go 2 ways, by the way. If it goes wrong and you sack him, then you pay him a shed load.
Yeah.
If it goes well, then that same amount of money comes into the club. And it seemed to me timely, actually, that and I really don't know what would have happened had we beaten Stevenage. That's another horrible.
That would have been League One football.
League One football again. My goodness.
Well, it would, and it would be one more step away from non-league. That's the way I look at it. It sounds a bit.
It can go really wrong in League.
You get promoted. It's 12 more months in the league.
12 more months of distributions from the football league. We'll have that all day. So that was a horrible day for me. But I think my point is, I think the answer to Paul's question is no, I didn't know, but I think the time was coming.
I agree.
We're well compensated. Yeah. I felt that was fair, fair and reasonable. And actually, it was about time the club had a slightly different focus from a manager. Martin Ling was a top
Martin was amazing.
Guy, amazing guy. Yeah, great guy. We played some brilliant football. And after Buck's intensity, I think Martin's slightly more laid back approach.
Yeah, we were amazing that season. Such a small.
We were amazing. Unbelievably good side.
Martin Lintini, I think, is the biggest what if, at least in my time to Torquay United. What if he, hadn't fallen ill? What would have happened?
Because that Reniel's knees hadn't gone, and we had beaten Crewe on that horrendous second to last game of the season. We'd gone up at Hereford. Again, that's another what if.
Fell apart very fast after that, didn't it? I think we would have struggled after that. I felt that was definitely the end of an era. That second sort of playoff.
Yes, I would agree. Rennie Howe wasn't fit, as I recall.
Yeah,
he wasn't fit. I mean, it was. Remember, we were a really good side then as well.
That's great. I love them.
And finally, Harry Locke with the most important question. Ask completely away from football. Do you prefer a full roast or a full English breakfast?
That's
glad you said that to last.
Honestly, of all the questions, that's brutal, because if I had to choose, I would go with the Sunday roast.
Yeah.
The reason I am turning slightly away from the full English is because you can't get fried bread these days. It's alleged to be bad for you. Now, for me, fried bread is one of the joys of a full English, and very rare.
Should we put that out as a promo? Forget all the amazing work we've done. Should we just put that out as a promo?
I think that,
Just quickly, black pudding, Alec? Yes or no?
Yeah, no, I'd go. I don't want to over have a too big a portion of it, but it just adds a little bit of spice to the early morning pick me up.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite roast? What's the favorite roast?
Well, I'm gonna have to go beef, horseradish, mustard.
Yeah,
very good.
Got to have the full.
If you want to be successful Torquay chairman, whatever, you need to have that sort of roast.
Yeah. And that's it from that's it from the Yellow Army. So thank you once again to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Took the time to write in.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your questions, guys.
Thank you so much to everyone who's watched this. Thank you so much to you two for joining me, and Alex. It's been incredible. Not just been a guest. It's been just like you asked for us years ago. So incredible, and what an amazing year. We've got Lee Mansell coming up soon. That's
top man.
So that'll be interesting. We can go through all the same questions again.
And a fabulous servant to our football club. Amazing. What a player and what a man.
What a bloke. We just won't call him a right back, and I think we'll be okay.
No, careful. Remind me when he got sent off at Stevenage when he caught Mitchell Cole. Can you remember that?
Yeah, no, I don't remember that. Yeah,
Mitchell Cole's really good. I think sadly no longer with us, but Mitchell Cole's a hell of a player. England C. Man's anywhere stopping him was to remove an ankle.
Fair enough.
Wow, there we go. So
but anyway, don't bring that up.
I won't bring. So we won't bring those twos up. Thank you for your advice. Right, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Here's Hargreaves, chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. He stays on side. Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sells.